If you can make it through this entire video, I guarantee you won't be able to sleep tonight. A man was working late at night when he received a notification that there was detected movement on his son's baby monitor. He checked the app, expecting to see that his 3-year-old son had just coughed or sneezed loudly. But when he looked at the baby cam, he was shocked to see his son and wife acting very strange. They were sitting on the bed together, both glaring at the camera with blank, emotionless stares. He assumed that the camera was just frozen, but noticed that his wife and son were blinking every couple of seconds. He then called his wife to make sure everything was okay, and she told him that she was in bed with her son and he had gotten scared a couple of minutes ago and came into her room crying. The husband was stunned. He slowly told his wife that they were both in their son's room, looking into the baby monitor. Just as the wife was about to respond, there was a loud screech and the call ended. The man then went to check the baby monitor, and it was complete static.
Here are some of the worst things ever found on the dark web, part 1. This is why you should never send nudes. This is the story of Pink Meth. Despite the name, the website Pink Meth had nothing to do with drugs. Pink Meth was a market mainly for men where they would sell nude photos of their exes for a hefty amount of money. But that's not all. Pink Meth would then post these photos alongside the women's names, home addresses, phone numbers, and any other information the operators could dig up. Then a ransom on the content was delivered to the victim. They would tell all the females, pay up to have the photo removed or let the whole of the dark web have access to your personal information, including your nude photos. So never, ever send nudes. Pretty cool.
This is why you should never stay in sketchy motels. In 2005, a young woman on a solo road trip across the country decided to stop for the night. The first place she sees is the Mountaintop Motel. It looked pretty cheap, but she was tired, so she said good enough. The check-in guy eyed her up and down very uncomfortably and then asked her if she was traveling alone. She ignores the question, pays for her room, and then walks away with the key. When she gets inside her room and sees there are literally cockroaches in her bed, she says nope and decides to sleep in her car in the parking lot. Around 3 a.m., she wakes up to see the check-in guy using his own keys to get into the motel room she was supposed to be in. A few minutes later, he storms out and slams the door and starts walking towards her car. Terrified, she hides under her blanket as the man tries to open her car doors but can't and walks away. She speeds off and calls her friend and asks her to look up the address of Mountaintop Motel so she can give it to police. Her friend's quiet for a second and then just says, "The Mountaintop Motel closed a week ago."
Here are some photos taken right before disaster, part 11. This is the last photo ever taken of Lisanne Froon and Chris Kremers, who went missing when they were backpacking in Panama. Their disappearance is very haunting though. The first thing that was found after their disappearance was a backpack with both of their phones in it. When checking their phones, it was discovered that they tried to call 911 over 50 times, and they attempted everything and anything to contact help. Only a few remains were found, mostly bones belonging to one of the girl's feet. There's no way to know what actually happened to them. This shows the arrival and processing of an entire transport of Jews. Moments after this photo was taken right here, all the Jews in this photo, which are hundreds of people, were all murdered. This is the last photo ever taken of Lars Matank. Lars was traveling in order to follow one of his favorite sports teams. While celebrating, he got caught into an altercation and received a head injury. Lars went to go get some medical help for his head trauma, but something from the doctor's office must have spooked him and led him to sprint from the place and never be seen ever again. Pretty sad.
Yes, this really did happen. In 2015, a man woke up to a strange post-it note sitting on his desk. On it was a to-do list that he didn't recognize in handwriting that didn't look like his. Since he was up late the night before doing some work, he assumed he must have written out the list when he was half asleep and kind of forgot about it, so he just crumples it up and throws it away. 2 weeks later, he wakes up to dozens of these post-it notes all over his wall, and they're all blank except for one that in the same weird handwriting says, "Our landlord isn't letting me talk to you." Now feeling totally freaked out that some crazy person is crawling around his apartment at night, he starts looking for signs of a break-in, but there aren't any. Instead of calling the police, he shares his experience on Reddit asking for help, and one user's comment literally saves his life. Turns out the man was writing the notes to himself and then forgetting, because his brain was slowly dying due to a carbon monoxide leak that was only discovered because a user suggested he install a detector.
Normal looking photos that have a disturbing backstory, part 3. All the photos used in this video are from a documentary that was recommended to me by this really cool app. Click the link in my bio to download it. Right after this photo was taken, a bomb went off in the red car beside the boy on his dad's shoulders. The boy and the father miraculously survived. However, the cameraman and 28 others died, while 220 people were injured. The woman in red standing on the railing is a Japanese exchange student. Right after this photo was taken, she lost her footing and was swept over Niagara Falls and fell to her death. The man in this photo is David Johnston, 13 hours before the eruption of Mount St. Helens in the 1980s. His last words over the radio were "Vancouver, Vancouver, this is it," before he passed away and his remains were never found. The man in this photo is Tyler Hadley, who just before this photo was taken, murdered both of his parents and left their dead bodies in the house and proceeded to throw a house party. Normal looking photos with disturbing backstories, part 2. This Snapchat was the last photo ever taken of Sydney Loof, a woman who was killed by her Tinder date. Her body was cut into 14 different pieces, and when it was brought back to the morgue, it was in 6 different bags. This man was transferring oxygen tanks for 12 boys and their coach. He didn't have enough oxygen for himself, however, and died after losing consciousness in one of the cave's passageways. This man is Issei Sagawa, an actual cannibal from Japan. This photo was taken by a Japanese magazine after he was released from prison for insanity. The man in this photo, Franklin Floyd, married a woman and had custody over her children while she was in prison for 30 days. The girl in this photo is one of her children, whom Floyd kidnapped to start a new life with. He left the other siblings behind, and after this photo was taken, he went to another state, changed both of their names, and claimed her as his biological daughter. Later, he went on to marry her.